Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Antonia, and today I wanted to get back on YouTube and talk about some really big ideas that I've been realizing about myself and about the world in general, and what the root cause of all of our suffering is. And that is attachments to things. And I've been carrying these ideas with me throughout my life recently, and things have just kind of been unfolding, and things have finally been starting to make sense about the root of my anxiety. The root of all of my suffering has come down to my attachment to things outside of myself and what my self-worth really is. I feel like I've heard the term self-worth and feeling worthy for so long, and I really haven't understood what that means. And the way I could best describe it is being worthy just means that you know that you're enough just for existing in this world. And that was the reason I have been suffering all of my life, is because I always felt like I had to work to be loved. I felt like I was never enough just as I am. I felt like I had to gain things externally to me. And that was really just caused from a fear of being unloved, a fear of not mattering, and things like abandonment and if your parents worked a lot, or if you found yourself going through life alone, any number of things could have happened. At least for me, I felt like I internalized being alone. I internalized the fact that there's no one there for me. I must not be good enough for people to stick around, when in reality my parents were just busy working. But as a child, I really internalized that sense of loss. And also growing up as a dancer, I really placed all of my worth outside of myself, and that's where my suffering really began, was when I started relying on other people, other things, other talents outside of myself because your talent isn't really who you are. It's something you do. It's something that you can gain, but it's still outside of yourself. It doesn't define your worth. And I always heard that logically, but it didn't really sink in until recently, until I realized, wow, I've never felt like I'm enough for just existing. And for so long, I've never allowed myself to make mistakes. And I would always feel so frustrated and confused when I saw other people in my life make mistakes and be comfortable messing up, or being comfortable being a failure. I really envied that a lot, because I never felt like I could be loved. I never felt like I would be safe to make mistakes. I felt like my entire worth was on the line. Every time I danced, I was terrified of making mistakes, because when you make something that important, when you put that external thing on a pedestal, it's like you give all of your power away. And I didn't even realize I was doing that. And I use dance as an example for myself, because that's something that has been a staple consistently in my life. And it's something that I placed a lot of importance on when I don't even think it deserves that. I deserve to be able to make mistakes. And I think we all need to grant ourselves the permission to make mistakes. And a lot of that can also be taught, I think, in our society, there's a lot of fear around making mistakes because monetarily, with money and surviving and everything, if you fail, if you make mistakes along the way, you could suffer. So it's like we suffer beforehand before we even know the turnout. It's like learning how to focus on the present moment and not be so outcome focused. And I think when you start to get outcome focused, when you place all of your worth on things external to you, you have this needy energy. And I did not realize for so long that I was being so needy. And even though I felt like that neediness was, it's like I validated the neediness. It's like I validated the fact that I need A, B, and C to be worthy about myself, or else I'm not worthy at all, which is just not the case. And going back to the neediness, that's where manipulation happens. That's where a manipulative person, like, unconsciously doesn't even realize how manipulative they're being, because subconsciously they just want to be safe. They just want to make sure that they're getting all of their needs met. But there is an energy to that says, give me, and not being. It's like an energy where you're constantly trying to take from other people, which is based in scarcity and fear and not out of love. And this is where anxious attachment really comes in too. And lack of self-worth, it permeates in all areas of your life. For me, it permeated in my career and my passion, my day-to-day job, my relationships, and honestly just my baseline mood. I always had this underlying feeling that something was wrong, and it's because I didn't trust myself. I didn't see my own worth. I didn't reward myself with just existing. Like, I never realized that I wasn't comfortable just existing. That's why I've always been an overachiever. I've always been a perfectionist, and I always gravitate toward people who are not those things. Like, I really gravitate toward people in relationships who are comfortable making mistakes and who are comfortable with their downfalls. And then in the relationship, I become envious of my partner because it never felt like I was able to make mistakes and still be loved at the same time. But the trick to overcoming these things is not attaching yourself to things external to you. And that goes for anything at all. For people, places, things, identity. Like, aside from who I am as a dancer, aside from who I am as a daughter, aside from who I am as a partner, I don't need any of those things. As much as I love my family and my friends and my lover, as much as I love those things outside of myself, I am loved too. And I don't need anything. And when you realize that you don't need anything, your suffering ends, and your attachments to other things dwindle. Like, when you're aware of how much you attach your worth to things external to you, you will slowly release all of that anxiety and tension inside of you that feels like you need to prove your worth. I've always felt like I needed to prove myself because I was attaching my worth to things that I could control, when you can't really control your worth. Like, your worth is inherent. It's something that you're born with. And to try to manipulate the circumstances around you in order to gain that worth not only is it exhausting for yourself, but it's exhausting and taxing to the people around you and the people that you love, because you're spending that time trying to feel that sense of worth, trying to gain that validation constantly, which is not love. Love is being able to hold space. Love is being able to be and not taking constantly. And I always validated that neediness with the fact that, oh, I was abandoned or I was neglected. I felt this way. Like, you need to help me. You need to help me feel better as my partner. When actually, I did not want to take accountability for the fact that I am flawed. And that's okay. That's when the manipulative person can finally heal, because I don't think someone who is a chronic manipulator, yes, it's unhealthy and it's unjust and unfair and all of these things, but I think it's out of safety and they don't even realize it. And a manipulative person, they don't realize their sense of self-worth because they're trying to control all these moving pieces outside of themselves in order to stay safe. But what they don't understand is that their safety lies within themselves. Like, they don't have to control anything to be loved. And that starts with accepting that you're not perfect. And for so long, I was terrified of accepting the fact that I'm flawed. For so long, I was so scared of being a bad person. But we're all combined of good and bad qualities, and it always felt so unfair that I was never allowed to make mistakes. So as I get older, I'm realizing that it's okay to make mistakes. I'm realizing that people in my life still love me, even when I say sometimes I'm needy and sometimes it's not right. And that, when I finally came out and realized I'm sorry for attaching myself to you so much, I'm sorry for putting that burden on you of trying to derive my worth from you. That is such a big burden to put on someone else. And the moment I accepted that and shared that with my partner, I was healed. I was beginning to heal that. I was already beginning to accept that flaw first, so I can begin to accept all of the other flaws that I'm terrified of having. But there's something so freeing about being able to make mistakes and being a bad person. I think there is always so much fear around being a bad person, depending on who it is. I think if you grew up always terrified of being the one to mix things up, being the one to cause a ruckus, being a burden, that fear of being a burden becomes the actual burden later on in your life. And when you begin to detach in a healthy way, when you begin to let yourself just be, you can let other people around you just be, and people will feel comfortable with you. People won't feel like you're trying to take something from them or trying to gain something from their approval. And it's such an empty, meaningless connection in that way. If you want to build meaningful connections in your life that are based out of love and not scarcity and fear, you need to detach yourself from them. You need to allow themselves to be their own person, and you yourself to be your own person too. If you don't let yourself be your own person, you're always gonna try to get your self-worth from other people. And a really good example of this needy energy, this scarcity mindset that it permeates in all areas of your life, and people can feel it, whether you're aware of it or not. People do sense it, and they might not even realize that they sense it, but there's just this general feeling of, oh, I can tell that this person wants something from me, and that makes me uncomfortable, so I'm gonna stay away from them, because that's exhausting, and for good reason. It's exhausting for the person who has to deal with that too. But a good example of this kind of dynamic and why it's so unsuccessful, I would always feel less than in dance growing up. I would never feel good enough as a dancer. As a kid, I would leave all of the competitions and conventions crying to my mom, saying like, I'm not a good dancer, I'm a bad dancer. And I took it so personally, because I think I wanted to gain my mom's attention and love through being a good dancer. And I feel like my teachers were a little hard on me, so I didn't get that acceptance for being flawed. But that mindset carried with me through all of the auditions that I went to. So of course the people scouting people at the auditions, they would never ever pick me, and it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like it made it so much worse to put that title, put like these awards and placements on a pedestal and say like, I need to get this platinum, I need to get this reward, I need to get this scholarship, I need to place. It's so debilitating, and you're never gonna get what you want. And if you do, it's a short-term high, and once you get it, it's like you're met with so much existentialism and depression, and that's where the source of my anxiety was. The anxiety was that if I don't get this, I'm unworthy. And the most successful people who would get all of the auditions and jobs and scholarships, they were detached from it. They could go either way. They would be okay with or without it, because they knew that they would be worthy either way. And so the judges and the people at the auditions would see that, and their eye would be drawn to them, because they're not looking to take anything. Like it's like the cheesy saying, like, nothing to take, everything to give, or like everything to share, nothing to take. And I'm beginning to realize why I haven't been successful, and that's okay. I have not been successful in my dance career because I put my entire life on the line, and it's been one of the heaviest burdens I've ever dealt with. And it's not just in dance, it's my whole life. It's like the job that I work at. I definitely wouldn't be at the job I'm working at now if I had known my worth this whole time. And even with making this YouTube video, I think a year ago when I first started, I would attach myself to the things that I did. I would attach myself to the quality of my YouTube video. And I've just learned to detach my self-worth from the outcomes of what I do. Because when you attach your worth to the outcome, you're not present, and it makes what you do inauthentic. And that's where cringiness comes from. Like, cringiness comes from the fact that you're trying to do something to get approval. And I should name this video like how not to be cringe, but it's so true. It's so true. Like, I feel like I've finally unlocked the root of my anxiety and suffering. And that is, I just need to allow myself to exist. And I've never done that, and it's the most freeing feeling ever. Like, I feel like I can actually speak with my whole chest and not worry about sounding stupid. And I wanted to make this video to share this, because if you're watching this video, you're probably someone who is focused on self-help, like I always have been, because I'm always trying to better myself, because I never felt like enough. And there's positive and negative things to all people. Like, I think it's great that I focus so much on improving myself, but it's like, there's gotta be some give. Like, you have to, like, accept yourself for the person that you are in this moment, or else you will be riddled with anxiety and depression, and you won't know what the problem is, because you're out here thinking like you're just trying to be a good person, and like you want to be seen as nice, but that's an inauthentic path. It's a path that's rooted in attachments, and the more attached you are to things outside of yourself, the more you suffer. And I challenge you even to think about death more, and to think about how you would feel if you lost the people in your life. And it's, in our culture, in Western society, it's not common to think of death. It's like, thinking of death is like, no, don't ever go there, don't think of it. But in other cultures, it's a meditation practice to face your mortality and the reality that everything will be gone one day. And it's like, immediately saying that, you start to feel more alive. You start to feel more grounded in the present moment, and not so attached to things that are going to be gone one day anyways. And you appreciate what you have right now when you understand how to detach things, how to detach more from the things in your life. And I hope that when you hear these words that I'm saying, you carry these ideas with you through your daily life, because that's what I've been doing, and I feel like I've been suffering less. And I never knew I could live life with less of that feeling, like less of that burden and heaviness that is just like weighing on you. But yeah, I'm really inspired by this idea, and it's made me feel more free. And I'm probably going to be able to make YouTube videos more often, because I won't be so attached to the outcome. I won't be so attached to how well received it's going to be. I won't care as much about what people think of me, because my worth isn't attached to those things anymore. My worth isn't attached to that. And also, when you allow these parts of your shadow to be revealed, you also have grace for the other people in your life who you might have hated at one point, and you can still hate them. You can still hate people. I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have anger towards someone for their behavior, but it's like, you still have that forgiveness and grace in your heart, even though you are frustrated with the person's behavior and lack of self-awareness. But it's so much more freeing to admit that, yes, there have been times when I have been manipulative and I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just trying to stay safe. And the manipulation comes from trying to gain people's love. And you can't force anyone to love you. That's just the way things are. You can't force anyone to like you. And I feel like if more people would accept that reality, life would be easier for everyone, and people would learn to appreciate the things that they have, instead of having a scarcity mindset and feeling like there's never enough. It's like the lack of self-worth is combined with the scarcity mindset and having things driven by fear. For so long, I've been driven by fear. And I also think that's something I learned. I felt like things wouldn't be okay if I did not live my life from a place of fear, because it's like always trying to be there before something bad happens, always trying to make sure that nothing bad happens before it happens. But then what about the present moment? Like, what about you? What about yourself? Like, are you not gonna give yourself permission to be your most authentic self just for gain of ego? It's like your ego's always trying to gain something until you intentionally tell it to stop. And it's to get over these kinds of cycles of suffering, it just comes with accepting the fact that you have spent years doing these things. And I think that we could all suffer a little bit less if we allow ourselves to be an F up, if we allow ourselves to be the worst version of ourselves. Like, think of everything that you're terrified of being and accept what it would be like if you were all of those things, and accept maybe you are all of those things because of your fear of being those things. They exist in your shadow. It's so crazy to me how, as much like self-help as I've done, like as much self-awareness as I thought I've had, I'm not fully self-aware all the time. And that's okay. It's okay to not be aware of all of your issues 24/7. Maybe just allow yourself to accept them. Don't be blind to them. Like, don't try not to get better. But I think if you've struggled with perfectionism and always trying to be a good person, like fawning, or even someone who gets stuck in cycles with narcissists and manipulative people, it's very common for empaths to also be very manipulative themselves. And I'm probably guilty of this too. It's not like I would go out and try to manipulate someone, but I think the idea of just trying to gain someone's love and approval, that is manipulative energy, and it makes people back off from you. It makes people turned off by you. And unless the person is gaining something from your lack of self-worth, that's the only way that that kind of relationship would be successful. But as soon as I let go, as soon as I realize that it's okay to be an F up, that's when I finally could dance and not be terrified of making a mistake or being a bad dancer. It's like being a bad dancer was always my worst fear. So I realized recently, so what if I'm a bad dancer? Like, it's not that deep. Most people, when I would explain my fear to them, they're like, what? Like, what are you talking about? It doesn't matter, first of all. And most people are like, second of all, you're not a bad dancer. And like, I've spent years training, and that's where imposter syndrome comes from. Imposter syndrome is really just a deep lack of self-worth. And it's like, when you can realize that you're worthy just for being alive, allow yourself to just be worthy for being alive on this earth and just existing. Because I'm sure as a kid you internalized all of those things. You internalized the loss, you internalized your parents not being around, and you made it all about you, because that's what kids do. They internalize those things like a sponge, and they make it about themselves and about how they must be bad. But when you get older, you've got to intentionally get rid of that. Like, you have to intentionally be an adult and step in and tell your child self, none of those things are true. And don't take all of those things that happened to you personally, because it was never personal. It's not personal. Don't take anything personally. And that goes back to the art of detachment and letting go of your attachments to things external from you. And I think it's really easy to see this all the time in Los Angeles and being an entertainment company, being in the entertainment industry. It's like, I feel like I've unlocked the reason for all of my failures. I've unlocked the reason for everything that I wanted that I never got. And I never got all of those things because I didn't see my self-worth. And it's like the universe knows in some way that I first needed to gain self-worth in order to handle even getting those things that I wanted in the first place. And I think the best way to manifest things that you want is to look at the things that you really want. Look at something that you have the urge to put on a pedestal. Don't put it on a pedestal. Look at what it is you want and learn to be okay with the reality that you may never have it. And it will create that separation, and it will help you attract that thing to you, because there's the intention that you set for wanting that thing, but you don't repel it away by being needy and manipulative. And I 100% guarantee if you walk into an audition with that mentality, you will probably have a likelihood of getting the job, because you're not so concerned about what that outcome says about who you are. And that's what people want. That's the kinds of people that companies want to work with. Like, people don't want to work with you when you take things personally, when you have that neediness. It's so exhausting. And I hope this video helped you detach from the things in your life as you've been listening to my words. I hope that you can pinpoint certain ways that you have been overly attaching yourself to people, things, and labels. Just allow yourself to exist without any of those things, and watch how your life changes and the positive things that are able to come into your life because you've learned how to let go. So I'm on this journey myself right now. I'm saying all these things to you logically because I've had a lot of realizations about it, but I think it's gonna take some time for my body to learn that and move from that place on a consistent basis. I think I still have moments where I have self-doubt, but they last shorter than they have before. So it's a learning process, and thanks for watching my whole video. And if you made it this far, I assume that you've been struggling with something similar. So thank you for watching and have a great day.